And so here we go.
Yeah, we This is the INKPULP podcast.
It's just there are days, and I'll tell you this right up front. By the way, before I get into it, hello once again, everybody. This is episode Shawn
125.
One lucky number 125 of the INKPULP podcast. I am your co-host, Mr. Eric Canete. The guy who came up with this dummy idea is Shawn Crystal. He's right there in your screen, and he's joined us now for 5 weeks, and I don't know what's prevented him from just like saying, no, thank you. I got better things to do with my time. I think it's because there's a kinship between the two of you. Anything that you guys can do to show up in the same cosplay, you're down. You're just going to show up.
Pretty much.
I mean, I'm going to, how many matching outfits do we have, Shawn?
I mean, it's a lot at this point. So you're guaranteed easily a dozen episodes, right? Like,
yeah, but we're going to Seattle soon, and we'll get more.
When we run out of matching clothes, I'll stop doing the podcast.
Right.
Or we'll start taking clothing off.
Yeah, well, definitely. If you think that 2 viewers per episode is bad, wait until you guys start showing 50-year-old man super chunk. All right, so here's the thing. I look forward to these conversations. Really, like the spirit of it, I look forward to these conversations. But it's also kind of like nostalgia that keeps me coming back, right? I'm like, I love these guys. I love Shawn. I love Matteo. And I'm like, I really love talking to you guys offline. But the moment the camera turns on, something happens chemically inside both of your brains.
What?
That makes me not appreciate not being here.
You regret
or it makes me appreciate it less. Every week. We skipped last week, and honestly, I was having withdrawals. I was like, oh, we skipped last week. We couldn't make it work schedule-wise, whatever it was, with miscommunication, what they were going to, whatever it was. But I was like, oh, man, I miss catching up with those guys. Because if I've
It was actually your fault. You bailed at the last second, just so people know.
Yeah, but Eric's right. In the future, we can just record.
I said you guys could have done it on your own.
Oh, you know what happened? I wanted to record because Shawn texted me if we wanted to record the day after, but he got sick that same day.
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It was weird because my son got it first.
Yeah.
And then after a few days, Francesca, my girlfriend, got it. And after a few days, it was my turn. And that's when it happened.
Was it like a flu?
Yeah, it was flu. And each one of us added a different version. So Elia didn't have a fever, but was shitting his pants like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And Francesca had the fever and shit in her pants. And I just got the fever. So Francesca bought the
bridge.
The best of it.
Like I said earlier, it's freaking quality programming.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Shawn, you boasted to me that you had a topic to talk about.
I do.
Listen to this, Matteo. Mark it on your calendar. February 9th, 2023. Shawn showed up to his own podcast prepared.
Don't listen to Eric. I've always got.
He brought a subject the last time as well.
Yeah, I always.
Yeah, but it was like it was a yes or no question. You know, I mean, it lasted all of 5.
Oh yeah, he's gonna ask us how old are we.
Yeah.
No. Come on, give me some credit. What's your favorite color?
Green.
What's your?
How about you, Eric?
What's your favorite food? You know,
Eric, what's your favorite color?
Pasta.
Matteo? What is a food that you've had that you've said like I am never gonna eat that again?
Oh my god. Like I said it, but then I changed my mind. But the first time, cilantro.
Oh.
You don't like cilantro?
Oh my god. The first time I was like, what the fuck is this?
You thought it was soap?
Yeah. It's awful. And especially because we're not used to it here in Italy. We don't really use it.
You don't use coriander?
No, rarely. And just in a few You can find it in a few dishes here and there, but usually when it's used like with really carefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
And instead in the States, I mean, I had stuff that was stuffed with cilantro, which is crazy for me. But like my thing was like, okay, since I saw a lot of people so crazy about it that loved it, I was like, that's not like it's not possible that I hate it so much and other people loved it so much. So I tried to get used to it. So I'm now you know, if still I find that my dish covered in cilantro, I'm gonna take it off my plate.
Yeah.
But if there's just a nice amount, I can appreciate it now.
You said something to me, I feel like forever ago, where you said like there's a specific, like I can't remember in what context we were talking, but you said like when you first came to the United States, you saw these what looked to be like, you know, tomatoes the size of fists. And you're like,
Oh yeah,
holy cow, look how big that is. And immediately you associated it with the tomatoes that you have in Italy. And when
yeah.
you cut into it and ate it, you were like, this doesn't taste like anything, right?
It was zucchini actually.
Oh,
And I
zucchini. Okay.
tried cooking them,
Yeah.
and they were like literally this big.
Yeah.
And I tried cooking them on a making them how do you call it, saute,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
on a pad.
Mm-hmm.
And like that fucking zucchini on the pad, when you cook it, it became something like this
Yeah.
because it was stuffed with water.
Right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't
Yeah.
even cook it properly because all the water came out. So I started basically boiling them instead of
Yeah.
actually, you know,
Sauteing
making
them.
them saute.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It was interesting because when you said that to me, I was like, oh, I'd never thought about the ingredients. And then I remember this was when you were still single and you had me and my wife over at your apartment, and you cooked dinner for us almost every day, you know, or every night. And there's a clear, distinct taste to tomatoes, even though they're like this small in Italy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, and and the reason why I bring that up is probably that's why cilantro is such an overwhelming concept for you, because
Oh, that's
you know it's
interesting.
one of the few things that we have over here that still kind of holds on to its original taste. And to your point, you don't have it on the daily.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right?
absolutely.
Did you always like cilantro, Eric?
I never even think about it, man. I can't taste it. Like some people, they have a
Yeah.
really awful reaction to it. Speaking of
Yeah.
awful reaction, I'm having an awful reaction to this freaking podcast right now. Shawn, Shawn, you had a subject matter.
Well, wait,
right?
we're talking about cilantro. I got a cilantro story.
Tell me the cilantro story. I'll be right back.
I'm the punching bag for Eric.
Hold on.
So I love
Stand by.
cilantro now, but
There we
I
go.
think so. First time I had cilantro, I don't know if it was the first time. It was the first time I had a heavy presence of cilantro. I love tacos, and this was in college, and my roommate and I loved tacos, and we were going out to get some tacos at a local Mexicano place, and we got super, super, super stoned to go enjoy these tacos to the fullest. Now, this was no Taco Bell. These were traditional tacos, which probably at the time for me was semi new. And we bit into these tacos. We were starving and got the taco, sat down, bit into them. And I'm like chewing it. I'm like, what does that taste? And then my friend's like, dude, I think there's soap in these tacos. And we were so high and paranoid. We're looking around at other people enjoying their tacos. And we created an entire narrative where my roommate had pissed them off ordering it. And they squirt soap into just our tacos. And so after 2 bites, we tossed them and left hungry. Come to find out later, it was probably just cilantro.
Yeah. So you
Matteo,
discovered it
you're
later.
friends with this guy. You know what I mean? This is your friend. This is the guy that you choose
Yeah,
to play
Eric, you
matchy
can
with.
stop talking now. Matteo, you had a question?
Yeah,
Let's
no,
do it
I was
again.
asking you. So you added later as well in life.
Yeah, you guys are going to find this surprising. I was the pickiest eater as a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's surprising. I know. I
Oh,
didn't.
shit.
I wouldn't touch anything that had sauce. My food couldn't touch. I was raised on hot dogs and salami. Like we'd go out for like a pizza for dinner, and I would have to get plain salami on plain bread, and that was it. I didn't eat pizza till I was 15 years old.
Jesus.
I was a horrible, horrible child. But it like so Mexican food growing up was a nightmare because it looked like a giant
it's all
pile of
there together, yeah.
wetness and everything's touching, and I was like, Tacos were like, what's in there? I don't even know. So yeah. So but now I'm no longer like that, as you know. So yeah, I didn't start discovering foods until my teens, my late teens. And that's when I started venturing out.
Got it. Okay.
Eric's had enough.
Quick moment of silence.
Fucking derail the hell out of this. Listen,
I'm
I
just
also want to
taking
give
it
you, I want to give you some compliments, Shawn. A couple of people have reached out to me and been watching the most recent episodes, and I don't know if you've started airing the Matteo episodes yet. Have you?
No, not yet.
Oh, they're gonna fucking love it. I love this guy for the pure fact that he understands what entertainment value sounds like. You see how he like cut off that story about like him and his family shitting their pants? It was just enough spice, you know? We could learn from that.
You're
From
saying
that.
I could learn from that.
I wanted to be nice, but yes, you can learn from that. And like know just the right information to cause the ha-has and then walk away. Anyway, the compliment was,
yeah,
you're doing a phenomenal job. It gives the viewers an insight to some of the stuff that we end up talking about on a professional level, but also insight to us chit-chatting as just people. So that's nice. Now, with the addition of Matteo, a little bit of cilantro in the mix, I don't know how people are going to act, you know?
Well,
but I think it's going to be overall positive.
They're going to love the hate for Mr. Freeze. That's
that's going to be our thing that goes on for all the
episodes. we should make like buttons for the podcast we can give out at cons that says Eric hates Mr. Freeze.
Eric hates Matteo's Mr. Freeze. That's the key difference. I love that character. I can't
actually like probably since the success of the series, they're probably going to do a second run of it. So I'm going to propose for the One Bad Day Mr. Freeze Chapter 2 to create a new character that hates Mr. Freeze and is basically a Filipino.
Well, you should have Mr. Freeze have
Filipino.
Listen to me.
You need an artist.
Most second issues don't sell as well as the first. So you throw a Filipino in there, that's just an automatic way to
here's the whole story. There's an artist from Italy, and that Filipino guy can't stand him, so he kills him and frames Mr. Freeze. And
don't let Shawn
that's already not realistic. It'll never be.
Do not let Shawn write anything for you. Again, it's just. Let's get through this. We are counting the minutes down now. 13. It feels like 45
we already covered 13 minutes with nothing. That's amazing.
I know. Let's come up with something.
And Shawn has to come out with his subject.
All right, you ready for my subject? You ready to dive into this?
I'm ready.
And after that, I have one. If there's time left.
There's going to be time.
It's a one answer.
Probably Shawn's stuff is going to be at my
there's going to be time.
That this episode's going to be 2 hours long, but we'll see.
All right. So in studying business and advertising, I've come across this concept that in order to advertise successfully, you don't advertise your product, you advertise the
Go on.
You advertise the problem.
I'm listening to you, brother.
Thank you, my brother.
No worries.
In order to succeed at advertising, you have to advertise a solution to a problem, and that's what your product is. So I've been wrestling with how do you sell art with that mentality? Because what problem do we solve? Is that the anti-Fratelli jacket?
Are you ready to go out? You're ready to leave.
I hear the
I'm ready
car
to
running in the
fucking leave,
background.
dude.
But oh, by the way, when you do that, you still hear us, right?
What? Yeah.
When you disappear. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
wish I didn't. I heard the question and I was
All
like,
right, but
let me burn through this
seriously, this is
question quick.
something I'm trying to understand. And in fact, people have reached out to me with the same question. How do you sell? How do you see the selling of art? If advertising is about selling a solution, what are we selling? And then how do we sell our art accordingly?
Okay. If you don't mind, Eric, I'll go first.
Go, dude. Go.
Okay.
Please. And I'm going to
So,
be in the background like this. Stretch. Stretch this. Stretch.
so, I mean, first of all, like selling art, you're selling a product that it's different from other products because it's not like you don't actually use it for something. It's just, you know, it's just something that you own. And I mean, unless you have like thousands of pieces, you can frame it and, put it in your house and look at it, or,
Right,
put
but
it in your
so
studio and be inspired
sure.
by that. But they don't really solve a problem like, I don't know, like this,
Well,
whatever. This
along the lines of
phone.
what you just said, they could solve a problem of my surroundings are dull, and this
Mhm.
gives me
Yeah, that's
something
that.
nice to look at. You said
Yeah,
inspiring, which is nice.
yeah. Uh, that could be one thing, or another way to see buying art as a problem solver could be that it could be an investment,
Okay, that's a good one. That's
which
a
is
good one.
not like the attitude that I have when I buy art, because I
Yeah.
just buy it because I love it.
Yeah, but I
Or
think we're artists, so I think that's a little different because
Hmm.
like I mean, I personally I like to have art hanging up. I like to look at it and learn from it and study it.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think that the investment could attract people that normally are not attracted to it. I'm thinking about like a year ago, more or less, when NFTs started to be
Mhm.
popular. And remember, we sold some of my stuff, and I think some of the people that bought them, they weren't even art collectors, probably, and
Right.
they bought them as financial assets. So
Mhm.
that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, that's a way. It's a hard yeah, it's still a limited pool. What do you think, Eric?
Is my mic on? I can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now we
now
go.
it's on.
Okay. So I think you're premising it in one of the few rare exceptions where art, especially when it comes to the stuff that we do as a secondary market, which is like selling original art, because that's not your primary. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
going to be your primary business, right?
Right.
I think this is one of those rare exceptions where you can say, "Hey, I need to go and cater to an audience that makes their life easier," if that makes any sense. Because oftentimes that's where the most people are like, that's more businesses. Like if you think about things like iPhones and Uber and
Right.
all of these things that are, changing an industry or disrupting an industry. How do you make their life easy? You make it more accessible, right? And I don't think we fit into that group. You would have to squint really hard, as you'd have to get really hand wavy with it, like Matteo just did, which is like, oh, you've got to think of it as an investment. You got to think of it as this. And it's like, it's rare that somebody's going to go, hey, let me buy your original art because of an investment, right? It
Right.
often comes from a place of like, I really, really like your art. I really like the work that in this particular book. I really like that. And I don't know if it could fulfill what you were talking about, at least not one to one, to say something like, shit, I'm trying to think of like what's around me that makes me go like, oh, that made my life easier, and therefore I wanted to have that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then along the same lines, how do you sell your comic, Eric? Like like if with that same thought, like
Yeah.
of making someone's life easier or solving a problem, how do you
Yeah.
advertise a comic?
Yeah. So that's different, right? Because the product is the comic, not the art in the comic.
Right, right.
Right. So first, it's going to have to be, and this is independent of all the work that it's going to need to like get people's awareness and reading that comic, right? The want is having something that, as far as storylines are concerned, no longer decompressed like before, or like it is right now. I don't know if you've read recent comics, but I had a friend, she just started picking up buying comics again, and she's like, it took 4 comics to tell this little thing that shouldn't have taken to tell. Like, it should have taken like an issue and a half,
Mm-hmm.
right? And comics being as expensive as they are, 4 comics at $5, $6 or whatever it is, that's ridiculous, right? So she's looking at it purely from a barrier to entry and money, right? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
does it cost me to like get in there and then ultimately stay there because this thing is so compelling? And decompressed comics now, I think, is the wrong way to go.
Okay.
They're not fun to read. You're just sitting there like talking about a moment that has like nothing to do with becoming. And I think here's the other one that I'm trying to fulfill. Like, they don't often lean into telling stories about characters that are aspirational. Does that make sense? The
Yeah.
last I remember, a cartoonist Kayfabe just put up the Frank Miller artist edition. It's like the black and white book for A Dame to Kill For.
Right.
And even as jacked up as that main character is, right? You can still understand there's morality involved there. The guy
Mm-hmm.
still tries to be better than he is given the situation that he's put in. That guy does some awful stuff, just awful, like
Yeah.
shock value stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, inherently, Frank Miller understood how to tell a story about how to make a guy as jacked up as he is, super like aspirational. He's trying to be better, and as an audience and a reader, you can watch him try to be better, right? And I think that's another thing that's missing. So that's the fix, or excuse me, that's what I'm delivering for you. Number one, I'm not decompressing stories anymore. As a matter of fact, the feedback that I got from book 1 of Arc Athena was, dude, I feel like if this was I remember this, I was watching a video, somebody do a YouTube video of it, and they're like, I feel like we are 4 episodes in. If this was a TV series, I feel like we're 4 episodes into the series, and I am missing so much. And it wasn't said in such a way where it's like, oh, it was told poorly, but it was so dense, right? That they were like, there's so much happening here. I want to know what happened previously that led us to this part. And again, it wasn't being weaponized. It wasn't like, oh, it's told poorly,
Sure.
and I feel
Sure.
like I've been left out of the loop. But they feel like there's so much has happened to this point in issue 1. What the hell? Give me episodes, book 1 through 4, right?
So was that intentional on your part in the writing?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
smart.
absolutely. Because I didn't want to deconstruct the scene unless it needed to be. I didn't want to like. I just need to, and just need like I think of it more like I have 120 minutes to tell a story or a movie. I can't get too fatty, and people are like, well, that's what the medium of comics is for. Hold on, that's what the medium of comics can do, but I'm not convinced that it should be done that way, right? Because there's so many things that you can potentially either leave out or just leave between the lines, and you'll be okay. I often go through the filter of like, if I cut this scene out, right? Will it hurt the story and the momentum? Does it add a layer of understanding to the overall themes that I'm trying to tell, of the story that I'm trying to tell? And the answer is no, I cut it. I think there's too many people who are just sitting there masturbating on pages going like, oh fuck, I love the way I sound. I love my thinking as I'm being filtered through as they're being filtered through these characters. Not really realizing nobody else does. Nobody else does, right? And my proof of this is when, like, people go, well, somebody does, because let's use Batman as an example. Oh, Batman still sells 250,000 copies every time it comes. Something like it's in the hundreds of thousands, right? It's like the number 1 selling comic book in the mainstream industry right now. And you're like, are you sure that's what people like? The way you're telling this story, or do they like Batman?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Right.
sometimes if you omit that title as that creator leaves and goes starts their own thing, and I'm not picking on one creator in specific, but I'm talking general now. When they leave and go tell their own thing and they create their own stuff and they try that decompressed bullshit, nobody reads it. They're there for Batman, right? So I would bet good money that 80-90% of them are there because they're long-standing collectors of Batman. They love Batman as a concept. They love Batman as a comic, and you happen to be writing it this time, right? And they've got to sit there and take your bullshit, like your decompressed BS. So
Right.
I look at that and I go like, what is the audience craving? And based on what I've come to have an understanding for, and what's great is that ultimately it aligns to where I'm coming from a storyteller, is get rid of that deconstruction and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna use Chris Claremont as like the high pinnacle of everything, but I've been reading a ton of that old school Fall of the Mutant stuff from back in
That
the
was
day.
fun stuff.
Like, I'm trying to see where there's like he has a formula that
Right.
really works. He knows when to slow down, right? Oftentimes at the beginning of the book, right? And oftentimes at the 2/3 mark of the book, he slows down just a little bit to give you some character stuff. And the thing that he utilizes like a freaking assassin is a thought bubble.
Right.
He puts a lot of context in those thought bubbles in regards to those scenes, and I want to try to bring that back. As a matter of fact, I brought it to my letterer recently. I'm like, "Do you have a template for these thought bubbles?" He's like, "I don't even know. I haven't had to use a thought bubble in freaking forever, you know?" And I
Right.
thought, like, that's fascinating because that was a great tool for back in the day for them to like give you insight into person's thinking rather than taking you away from the main point of action, right? They have a moment where they think about these actions or their interactions previously with the person they were interacting with. So to go back to what you were asking for, that's or what you were talking about. I think that's where I'm offering with the book. Independent of the art is the product. And the product, what it offers is number one, aspirational characters that you can take a look at and go like, these are not perfect people, but they are trying to be better. And I can see myself in one of these, characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's independent of like skin color and identity. It's genuinely about character and how they're being written. And
Right.
then secondarily, I took away all that decompression stuff and make you feel like, wow, we are moving at a pace. And I've gotten that feedback 2 books in, 3 books in, I've gotten that feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matteo, you're stepping into this now, doing your own book. Have you thought about any of this stuff?
Not yet actually, because I just wanna do it right now. Like my goal is to do it, and
Right.
then learning, as I do.
I
So
think
the
that's a
goal right
valuable
now
thing.
is to have the book, edit out the best way possible with the best, it either be how do you call it, crowdfunding or with a publisher or whoever wants it. We'll see. And I wanna see the response, of the people if they really liked it, and then move from then and see if it's worth experimenting more, doing other stories.
Mm-hmm.
But like with when I have to draw a new series, like I don't ask myself too much in the moment. I just give myself a goal beforehand, and then I just go. And what happens happens. I mean, the important thing, I think, is that you put the passion in it, and the quality in general, and,
Right.
and then you see how it goes. So
What about
I'm
you, Shawn?
not there. Like I'm not there yet. Probably I will be in, I don't know, 5 years if I keep putting out books written and drawn by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. But right now, and just my goals are really basic and simple, which is like, okay, let's do a book, let's have it out, and let's
Yeah.
see what people think of it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think there's value in that, right? Some people often, talk themselves out of it, right? To put themselves into stasis because they're like, oh, this is my first book that I'm going to do. How do I know if it's going to turn out well? How many more like training sessions do I need to do before I actually end up doing, and let me do little tiny project. And it's like, yeah, I guess so. That's one way of doing it.
Yeah,
And I'm with you. I'm like, the only way I can really learn how poor something is if I go and try it myself, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I think you
yeah,
said that's one way of doing it. I think that's one way of avoiding doing it. For like in my experience, like
yeah,
I could load myself up with exercises and little studies and just avoid actually getting the project done by doing that.
oh for
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
How did you answer that question when you were thinking about it, Shawn? Your question when it's like,
Well, I used to think about like let me just tell a cool fun story and like let's say
Is
the
it fun
zombie
as the
genre.
cilantro one?
see, I didn't do that one. That was
I
mine.
sorry, you served it on a silver plate. I had to do it.
Look at that. That was good. That was see what I mean? Like this, let's go back to the thing that we were talking about. Shawn, hold
Yeah.
on to that fun fun story.
Mhm.
But do you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about how Matteo has improved so much, not just with his English, but also his timing?
Yeah.
That's
Facts.
phenomenal, dude.
Yeah. It was good. It was a hatchet. I
That
mean,
was
it
he
was a
shot from the hip. He
scalpel.
didn't even bother taking the gun out of the holster. He
I didn't even
just
feel it. He just sliced
yeah,
my throat, and I didn't
yeah.
even feel it. It was so
All
fast.
right, anyway, back to your fun story. Here we go, Maddie. Prepare yourself. Brace for impact. It's gonna be so fun.
No, I'm not saying this is. I'm saying when I think about telling a story, I
Yeah,
just think like I used to think like let me just make it fun and exciting, and that's all you need to do. So if we
yeah,
look at like the zombie genre or horror in general,
sure.
something like zombies is so overdone. If you're gonna do a zombie story, like why and what's the resonating um theme that is that like are we using the zombies as a metaphor for something that
Sure.
people
Sure.
can really cling to? So I've been thinking more about that, like for example, the story I'm going to be writing is a vampire story, but the fact that it's a vampire story really means very little. It's more about my experience as a middle age. Can I say I'm middle age? Am I past middle age?
I don't know.
I think
What's
you're
middle age
past.
for you, Maddie? What's middle age for you?
My age, probably.
So in my
Or
in my senior
45,
years.
45. Let's say. Like technically it's supposed to be 50.
Okay, so 50. All right, so middle age. Um,
Shawn was like, "I'm there. I'm in.
yeah, I'm younger than I thought.
Qualified."
So just thinking about like something that can thematically resonate more than just, oh, these are vampires. So for me, wrestling with all the things I'm wrestling in life, just being a middle-aged dad in this world we're living in right now, I think that will give me more purpose in what I'm doing and hopefully more connection in the reader.
That was definitely fun, Shawn. Thank you for walking us through that.
I wasn't trying to be fun.
It was okay, good, because that was depressing as fuck. I just want to
But
start the
going
car
back to
now.
what you said, Eric, I agree on the fact that in general, if you want to catch, and correct me if I misunderstood, but part of what you said was one of the secrets is that people need to be able to connect. Unless you have a powerful, character
Yeah,
like Hellboy or
yeah,
Batman, so people are
yeah.
gonna follow it no matter what. Otherwise, a way to connect is, to have stuff that talks about people inside.
Mm, mm,
That's why I don't know, like as you said, zombie is a genre that's been, overused over over the years. But despite that, like Walking Dead was, when it came out, was one of the most popular series, TV shows in
yeah,
the world.
yeah,
Because zombies at the end, if you look at the story, it's just a dress.
Right.
They that covers
yeah,
the whole thing, but it
yeah,
actually talks about human beings and
yeah.
how they interact with each other. And zombies are the way to make things extreme in order to obtain extreme reactions from
Hmm.
people. So you can start
Hmm.
thinking, oh, wait a second, what if this happened here? Who will I be? Would I be of all these characters? Killer or whatever.
You see that? You see what he just did? I think he did that on purpose. Your thing is actually interesting.
So that's what my story, the story that I'm gonna be writing.
You're gonna be telling a
Probably
zombie story?
no,
Oh,
no, but I'm like there's some superhero stuff, but the superhero stuff is really superficial,
yeah,
and it's all about fathers in general and
yeah,
interaction, dysfunctional families, all this stuff that always fascinates me when I
yeah.
see
I
it.
think both of you guys are right. I mean, joking with and using Shawn as the butt of a joke aside, I think you guys are using that tool pretty smartly, which is it's just a backdrop for saying something or making a statement about the nuances of the back. So in your case, Shawn, you could be telling a vampire story, which is thematically always some people who are like on the outside looking in, never fitting into a preconceived box that is the whatever humanity's narrative, right? It's always like, what I mean? It's almost a foreign perspective on
Right.
what it means to be human. Yeah.
Right.
The zombie side, it's no, like generally, it's about like, and this term is used almost like as a pejorative, which is to say like that guy is such a freaking zombie. He just follows everything that everybody tells him, right? And that's what zombie stories are, right? Which is
Mhm.
like your protagonist or whatever your main characters are often not in line with whatever the general collective may have in mind for itself. So, like, Last of Us just came out. That's like at its core, that's a zombie show, right?
Sure.
Just
Sure.
because you're doing it with plants doesn't change anything except for the visuals and the dressing that you put on
Right.
top of it.
Right.
Ultimately, it's just about two people trying to get across the freaking country, and a dad finding a way to reconcile the fact that he feels guilty for not being able to protect his daughter, right?
Right.
And then I think Ellie is just the second half of that protagonist group is a vehicle to remind him of that and what it means to, like, start believing and protecting people again as opposed to just protecting himself, right? So,
Right.
and the zombie is thrown in the background to be like, hey, I'm gonna make you, I'm gonna have you make choices now that
Yeah.
either make you choose one way or the other, protecting yourself, going back to where you are, or finally accomplishing your story arc or your character arc, which is like, oh, you believe in loving somebody again and protecting other people again, right?
Yeah.
That's really super simple, yeah. But some people they don't know how to pull that off,
Right.
right? Because they get hung up on the superficiality of visuals, which
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad, right? Like if you take a look at Last of Us purely from a design standpoint, I think it's a great jab step into a different direction than what we've grown accustomed to from like Dawn of the Dead
Right.
and Shaun of the Dead and all of these like sort of zombie things. They introduce plants instead, but you're like, at the end of the day, there's really nothing in there. As a matter of fact, if you watch the making of, they avoided a handful of the things that made the video game version of the whole thing, which is like this spore that's always constantly floating around in enclosed spaces. They had to take that out because they couldn't have some of these scenes if there was an inherent danger of spores just kind of floating inside an enclosed environment. But in a video game, it makes a lot of sense. You've got to be extra careful. You're always
Sure.
wearing these
Sure.
like these air regulator masks and so on, right? Um, but you have to find what you're trying to say thematically. And I think I pretty much captured it with Last of Us, which is like, here's a main character, super guilty about, not being able to be a protective father, right? That led to
Mhm.
her daughter, spoilers, that led to her daughter's death. And now he's being given a second chance, but he doesn't know if he believes in that or not, right? Because he did it so poorly. He's experienced so much trauma previously, right?
Right.
In
Sure.
vampire stories, you're kind of like, oh, here's an outsider's perspective looking in, independent of what's recently happening with like Twilight and all the borderline fan fiction stuff that's happening, right? But
Yeah,
like,
it's terrible.
if you take a look at Dracula, if you take a look at Nosferatu, right? It's like all of these perspectives that are being shown from, hey, here's a person that's outside of society, right? And what does the world look like from that and it's being looked at through a protagonist, or through a storytelling mechanism, right? Oh,
Mhm.
Dracula doesn't see the world like this. He sees it more like this.
Mhm.
It's interesting. It's valid, but at the end of the day, you know, the aspirational concept is that as tempting as those things may be, in this case, let's say like immortality and all that crazy stuff, as tempting as those things are, I still choose to be human. And these are this is the line in the sand that I won't cross when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So find that, discover that. And I think you can pretty much, formalize the heck out of any genre. Like you brought up Hellboy earlier, right?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to understand what Hellboy was, like why it was so compelling, at least in the beginning. And I couldn't
Mhm.
really come up with it. But I mean, it's funny that now that he's kind of using different analogies that he mashes into Hellboy, right? One of them was the, how do you pronounce the homunculus?
Yeah.
The
Homunculus.
basically Frankenstein, right?
Mhm.
Part of Hellboy is that, it's the it's this being that's come to life, right? Kind of, but not necessarily from mishmash pieces, but the existence of something that's not supposed to be alive, and people are reacting to it. And he backdrops it with like World War II stuff, and it's great because people who know that craft know how to do it well, how to hide those themes, or but at the very least, understand how to execute on those themes. You know,
For sure.
Good job.
good
And how
question,
about
Shawn. Look at you. Well done.
Arc Athena, Eric?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
the thing
The
like
theme for
behind
it. Yeah, it's about leadership and accountability, which
it?
oftentimes in this day and age are sort of superseded because um, there's a value system now that's less about that, right? And more about the bombastic like nature of something. Oh, that is really super cool, man. Oh my gosh, you jumped out of a building. Oh my gosh, you walked into a hallowed Japanese graveyard. Oh my god, you know what I mean? Like all of
Yeah,
these things that we just ingest passively because of social media. You just sit there and go like, "Oh, that's cool," not really thinking, "Hey, there's a next level to that that you might not be aware of." And in the
yeah,
case of people who are being superheroes for the sake of social media, for the sake of like fan adoration, because that's what social media is a vehicle for, right?
yeah,
Is this immediate hit of like people love me, and you have broken people in those spaces, their value system switches, right?
yeah,
And so I explore that for the first issue where it's like, oh, it's all about how you are the best person because other people will tell you that you are. As a matter of fact, you've gotten this far based on merit, but at some point merit went away and it started to become about this adoration. You know what
yeah,
I mean? This external sort of like reinforcement. And you've lost track of the internal reinforcement, your internal core value. And so leading up to that, this person discovers it or rediscovers it anyway, right? And I just put an alien invasion in the background to help
yeah.
Exactly.
highlight,
Yeah, that's
you
the
know,
backdrop, the thing that makes everything explode. Okay, gotcha.
yeah. If you take a look at, on multiple levels, it's like, oh, people are going to look at it and be like, oh, that's a cool alien invasion. Like look at all these stupid spaceships and giant mecha kaiju and like motherships and fish aliens or whatever. That's cool. I love that stuff. I grew up on X-Men, for crying out loud. That's freaking cool when I saw Jim Lee do like space stuff. But I think one of the key things that helps me along when I'm like, oh, I think I'm just drawing for the sake of drawing, right? Like, oh, I would love to draw a giant spaceship right now, but one of the filtering systems, one of the razors, I go like, oh, that doesn't really help me with my story. Like, what about that scene right there helps move the story along? And I'm telling you, and you said this earlier, like I want to try stuff because I just want to put it out there, Maddie. And I don't know if this is going to land well with you, but if you have an editor that you trust, if either of you have editors that you trust, that's one of the key components where I'm like, everything else you can kind of go and get clumsy with, but if you find a good editor, they'll keep you honest.
Yeah.
One of the key things that my editor really helps me hone in on is number one, how to make things shorter, right? And still get the same exact point across. Hey, this is running a little bit long. This is not really helping you underline, because that's what an editor is doing. It's like, underline this. This is the point, right? If that's what the beginning part of our conversation, every time I turn in a rough script, he's like, I think I know what you're going for here, but tell me what you're going for, right? And so I
Yeah.
explain to him, and he goes like, oh yeah, no, that's totally in there, but here's how you can condense it and underline it, right? And
Yeah,
really
yeah,
highlight it. I'm like,
I got you.
right.
Well, to be
That's
honest
really
with
cool.
you, like I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I'm like, it totally makes sense. But my plan right now is just to do it,
Yeah.
finish it, and
Yeah.
then start to find somebody who wants to publish it. So,
See,
but my
Eric,
idea is to finish the old project,
Yeah.
and then going around and it's like, okay, this is the thing. If you
Yeah.
like it, we'll publish it. If there's
Yeah.
something that you don't like, fine. I'll go, look for somebody else.
Yeah.
And if nobody wants it, I'm gonna publish it myself.
Yeah.
well, what Matteo
But
just
that's the attitude that I have right now, just for
Yeah.
this project. I don't
Yeah.
I'm not, for maybe the second book that I'll do, I'll do that. Sooner or later, I'm gonna use an editor as well.
Yeah.
But for sure, when I finish it, I'm probably gonna ask to a lot of people that I know to read it and see what they think, of course.
I think depending on like what your goals are, right? I'm not insisting that somebody has an editor. I know that as a tool, as a sort of like a lever that I pull on, I know it's been supremely helpful for me. It gives me
Yeah,
a
but Eric,
layer of confidence. What are you saying, Shawn?
what Matteo is saying is
Yeah.
he's so much better than you. He doesn't need the editor.
I hear that too.
Right.
It's
Just making
if
sure.
I'm able to read between the lines of that statement, it's like, Eric, I understand what you're saying, but you're not as good as me. I think that's what.
Yeah, Matteo, just be direct.
Right.
I mean, just be
Right.
direct. We're friends here. You can say that.
Yeah,
Hey,
that was well what I meant, but
he's being very nice about it. I get it. No, it's I again, depending on what your goals are, Maddie, it's clear to me that you're like, hey man, my main goal is to just get reps under my belt. I want to be able to say I did this, it's out, and if you're down for it, cool. And then ultimately you're going to get feedback no matter what, right? Because like you said, you're either somebody else is going to publish it or you're going to publish it, right?
I'm
At the end of the day,
sorry to interrupt. Just I wanted to add something.
Go, man, go.
To what you were saying. Another thing that I want to see is that in all these what's like 17 years of my career, I've always been, in general, if you ask people that work with me, really professional. But I never finished stuff just for myself.
Yeah.
And so every time I was on time, I would deliver on time because somebody else, a third person, told me to.
Right.
And this time, I am that third person.
You got to hold yourself accountable.
Way harder to have that discipline of saying you got to finish.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
So I want to test myself on that as well.
That's good. Eric, did you? I mean, I can guess the answer, but did you have any problem with what Matteo was just talking about? Like you stayed on schedule pretty good and held yourself accountable pretty good?
Or did you have a schedule at all?
Yeah, everything. Well, I always try to, even though I'll lapse it by maybe like a week or something like that. So typical deadline. My attitude was always like, there's other people, because I'm paying out to vendors now, right? From letterers to colorists to editors. They build their lives sometimes. They plan their finances around that sometimes.
Right.
Like, oh, I've got work from Eric coming in, I'd better stay on track. I want to commit my time from a professionalism, like to your point, man. Like from a professionalism standpoint, they're willing to commit their time, right? Nothing is binding them to you. Unlike, if you go to a mainstream publisher, that's their job, Whereas these guys independently, they're independent contractors. They're going to devote their time for X amount of months to your project. If you don't show up, how is that professional at all? Right. So I have that in the back of my mind more than I have the deadline. The deadline is just compounded into that. Like a lot of people have been kind enough to say, hey, yeah, no, I'll take on that work and I'll turn it around as professionally, as quickly as I can. I better show up on my end. So my thing is just like, do not be, and this was, I think, the sort of PTSD that I experienced back when I did that creator-owned book for Image from back in the day. Like, do not be the weak link in the chain.
Yep.
Right.
Like, be the person that shows up and all the pages are done and blah, blah. And in a way, too, is like a lot of personal pride, in the space that I was going in about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Not many books were done before they launched the campaign. Right.
Yeah.
And then I got into the more research I did, the more I'd found out that, wait a minute, some of these books are only a third done before they would, they'd have enough pages to put it on a crowdfunding site. And then next thing you know, they launch the book. They may like meet their goal or whatever it is. And then it's another 8 months to get it out. How do you maintain any sort of like momentum and consistency when you're 8 months apart from end of campaign to delivery into your customers' hands? Like, how do you keep them excited? How do you hold on to that stick of dynamite? I didn't like the feeling of that. So I said, screw that. I'm going to finish it. So it's all of those things compounded all at once. So not necessarily a deadline, but definitely there was a ticking clock.
Eric, did you decide not to color your own book for just because of the time it would take to do it?
That's a great question. I don't know if that was maybe it was that. Probably very pragmatic. I can't do this fast enough if I end up coloring it myself, because there's people who are just built for it. They're just like, they have their pipeline. They understand all the tricks, and I would sit there and probably labor over every shot. Whereas them, there's
Right.
that, and I don't mean this to be a bad thing. I don't mean this to be like a negative criticism.
Yeah, there's a
It's more of an
specific
aware.
process and everything.
Absolutely. And they are, in a way, as invested as they are into the project. Like I know Giuliano Peritelli, who is I could have sworn he was Italian, but nope, he's South American.
Brazilian, probably.
Brazilian, yeah.
It's either, if you hear an Italian first name and last name and it's not Italian, it means that they're from Argentina or Brazil.
Or Brazil. Yeah. That's fascinating to me. Yeah, is this Brazilian kid who who had never had that many notches on his belt professionally, right? Who's been trying to break into industry. So he was hungry. He was like, I want to try something. And when he first asked me how many pages it was, and I said, it's probably going to be close to 200, 300 pages. And he's like, holy cow, I've never done that many pages collectively. And I'm like, well, if you're down for it, you're about to do it, So he came in there, like my point was, he came in there invested, hungry, but there's a layer of like, he's removed enough from it.
Yeah,
You know what
it's
I
not
mean?
his baby.
Like if
Yeah.
I painted it, if I colored it, I'd sit there and labor.
Right, it's your
And like,
baby. It's
is
your
this
baby.
the right shot? Is this the right color? Am I doing
Right.
like I'd overthink it. So I'd
Yeah.
rather say the energy that I would put into that. So imagine if I put, like 200 hours or like, whatever, 200% of my energy into like getting the colors right. It would yield maybe like 20% result, 30% result. The return on investment didn't make any sense to me. So
Yeah.
instead of taking that 200% energy, I'd rather go and just draw the heck out of something and then do the
Right.
promotion for it and all the other stuff, the other hats that need time and effort and energy, and let this guy do his best. And again, the best part is that he was down to do it and he's open for collaboration. If he had come in there and like, I have an opinion and it needs to look like this, I'm like, okay, this feels a little weird, which you run into a handful of colorists who are like that,
Right.
They're never
right.
in love with the final execution. He's more concerned about, are we landing the themes that you have in your head? Are we landing the texture and the feel that you have in your head? I remember, who was it that you recommended for? It's is it Giovanna Nero?
Yeah, you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
one who did
Giovanna is a really good colorist. Yeah.
Freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Freaking amazing.
She's good.
Yeah, she worked. I managed to run across her work, and we worked together on Chrononauts 2, and I'm so glad that she's doing so much more work for Millar. And
Yeah, she's
Fine
doing
Books.
a lot of work with them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
she's great.
What scares me the most about colorists is when because they tend to take all of the gigs. So when they have too many on their
Yeah.
hands,
Yeah,
it scares me a little bit. And I'm not talking necessarily about Giovanna in general, since we're
Sure.
talking about
Are you
colorists.
going to have a colorist on your book, Matteo?
Yeah, but even that, like I told him, it's gonna be Moreno, the guy who colored me on Black Science. But I told him, listen, you don't have to worry about it now, because first I want to finish all the book, do the lettering, do everything,
Yeah.
and then when I find out how I want to publish it, it's either crowdfunding or if I find a publisher, then the negotiations start. So depending if it's a crowdfunding, you tell me how much you want per page,
Gotcha.
and that's gonna be in the goal.
Okay. That's cool.
If it's
Awesome.
whatever, if it's a publisher, I'll put you in contact with the publisher, and you guys decide how much you want to get paid, and then you start calling. That's why I was telling you, like it's hard for me because I really don't, I have to, if I have to do it, it's gonna be only solely for myself, because I don't have a publisher waiting for it. I don't have a colorist waiting for pages. I don't have readers waiting for it, because I'm not talking about the project. I don't, and even if I'm going to crowdfund it, I'm going to do it once it's done, once the book is done. So,
Smart.
There's nobody waiting for me aside, myself.
Right.
So that's really hard. Even you were talking, okay, I don't have a deadline, but I have people relying on the fact that I deliver on time. like the colorist, like you have people that are waiting for you still.
Right.
Yeah.
So Matteo is basically saying he's not ever going to get this book done.
Yeah. In my head, I was supposed to be
It's gonna-
starting in January.
I know. You haven't
know,
started yet? Is it written?
What? Sorry,
Is it written?
I have the plot. Like I have all the story. I know exactly
Are
what's
you
going to
gonna
happen.
write a script or are you going to draw it from the plot?
No, I'm gonna write everything.
Okay.
And
someday is what he's saying.
One
Sean.
day.
Someday he'll do it.
no.
Let's bet
Actually,
good
when I
money
come
now.
back
I remember.
from Seattle, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
I remember. Where were we? Was it Denver? Multiple years ago, right?
Mhm.
And we were all staying at that one hotel. And you turned to me and you were like, "Oh my!" This is you, Sean. You were like, "Eric, you are so fat." I remember like the way you said it too. It hurt. You know, it was like a pointed dagger, right? And we were all sitting around going like, guys, we packed on a few of the pounds back then, right? And we made a bet. I remember this. We were like,
Oh
okay,
yeah, that's when you guys
Denver.
lost weight.
It's Denver to New York. Do you remember that? Like Denver to New York. So that was
remember this.
what year was? Or excuse me, how many months is that?
I remember the
Denver was June, and New
June.
York is October. So it's
June,
5
July,
months.
August, September, October. 5 months.
5 months.
And
I remember
man, I wanted to win that bet so bad.
Matteo kept sending us text updates.
Yeah. But I don't think it was.
I didn't realize that after like a week was the only one participating. I had already stopped dieting and everything.
Yeah, it was everybody else that you guys decided you guys didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I kept
quit
going.
after like 10 days. I lost like 2 pounds and then it's like, but I remember you actually like lost
Eric changed his
a lot of weight, and it not only the weight, you
got muscular
muscles.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to that, gentlemen. My point is, I'm interested in making a bet with you to see who gets their book out first. You, me, or Shawn.
Your book's already out.
No, independent of that one. I'm like working on another one.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, look,
Let's see
I can't
like
get in on this bet because I mean, you guys are in situations where you've got the financial backing to support
Sure.
the execution of the book. I'm not there.
Right.
But
This is basically
for fun, I'll do it. I'll join in.
This is basically 10 days in. He was like, you know what? Never mind. I lost a couple pounds. Tapping out. Not gonna do it. I think what the thing that I'm trying to get at is that it's fun being in on these sort of like internal competitions with you guys. It's friendly. It's
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, I bet you Matteo's not gonna have this fucking script done anywhere near after. Like what's like Emerald City is the next big trip that you're gonna do, right?
Right after Emerald, I'm gonna be starting. Yeah.
That's not happening.
Well, he'll start.
Yeah, absolutely. I already started saying no to gigs. So
Okay.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is he's going to push it off just enough. I could use a little extra cushion here. Let me take a gig and then I'll get started.
Well, that's what I've been doing for the last 2 months. I keep saying yes to everything. But like yesterday, I received a really nice offer, and I said no. A couple of nice offers. Another one, it was 2 days ago.
All right, hold on the fort for a couple of minutes. I'll be right back.
Okay. What offer for interiors or covers, Matteo?
One for interiors, and the other one was for a movie, for animation.
Doing concept work?
Yep.
Can you say what it is?
Oh, it was it's the new Spider-Man.
I thought you already did stuff for that.
Yeah, I already did stuff for that, and they asked me to do some other stuff.
For the movie that's coming out in a month, or for the one after that?
I think, for the movie that's coming out in a month. They needed some concept to advertise it, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And can you say what the interior of the book was?
It was
just get him into trouble through all this NDA, Shawn, for crying out loud.
You didn't sign any NDAs?
And no, that's the interior were for Noctera. It's a book by Scott Snyder.
Yeah, that's already out. That has already
Yeah,
exists.
it's him and Tony Daniels.
Right, that's right. Okay,
So yeah, they asked me to do something for that book. I
gotcha.
already did a cover last year, I think,
Okay,
but I had to say no.
Eric,
Sorry.
did
Oh,
you
you
just
really,
adjust your
you're
aperture? Is that what you were on
no.
pause
I just
for?
I just closed the freaking window.
Oh,
I was
okay.
about to say Mateo's really dedicated to this lie. I really love your dedication to this.
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
To
I'm
this
being
fiction.
honest. I'm being
You
honest. The
know?
reason why I wasn't able to start by January is that I kept saying yes to a cover. Oh, would you do that cover? Oh, yes, yes, yes. And all of a sudden, like I did 20 covers,
Yeah.
and you know,
I just realized what you did. I think this is you. This is also part of. I asked Shawn. Shawn. I asked Matteo. Hey man, you're really famous right now, not because of Mr. Freeze, but more because of King of Spies.
and then I
Right.
said, "Tell me something that I don't know."
Right. Right. And he said like, well, I didn't know how awful Mr. Freeze was going to turn out, but say la vie, right? And so yeah, you're really famous right now. You're the hottest thing. You're like you're pretty big. In Italy, in Europe. Can you do a cover for? Are you going to end up doing a cover for Arcathena? And he's like, fucking finally, you asked me. I've been waiting this entire time. What took you so long? He says to me, what took you so long?
I
I was
actually
like, hey
asked
man,
something else, and you never replied. But
just when you
why?
want to, totally cool. I'm happy. He's I'm whatever time that you have for me. Fast forward to like right now, he's like, I'm not taking on any more work.
No, okay. Here's the
No more.
Oh, yeah. If it's on his phone,
fucking
it means
guy.
it's
This
real.
fucking guy. All right. So
Here he goes.
Uh-huh.
He's gonna
Here's
scroll
this
some
is
down.
how
some
deep the
stuff
lie
some
goes.
stuff is Italian. So
Yeah.
here's the covers that I still have remaining. Can you know it's all white, right?
Wait,
It's
pull
all
it back
blown
a
out.
little
Yeah.
bit. I can see no, pull it back, pull it back. Nope.
Now throw it out the window.
Yeah. See, there's nothing there.
Oh, really?
There's
There it is.
nothing
There it is. There it is.
What'd you see? What'd you see?
Uh,
Third to last.
I see a bunch of
Fucking
lies
asshole.
written down. That's what I see.
I can't read it very well. I can't read it very well. All right. So this
Oh,
this
there's
is
an
all.
Arcatina in there. Let me tell
All
you.
right. All right.
Arcatina.
It's an Italian, so I can't read it. So
No,
here's the thing.
Arcatina is an English. Fucking asshole. So it's right here in the to-do
He's
list.
waiting
Well,
for
Eric,
me.
if it's in his phone,
But
it's real.
and you know what? The other covers at a date, right next to them, and yours doesn't have it because I asked you when do you
'Cause, yeah.
need it, and you never
To be
replied.
to be perfectly honest with you, Maddie, when I asked it, I felt a tiny bit embarrassed about it because I know how freaking busy you are. Honest to goodness truth, I was like,
Oh,
oh,
fuck off.
I
Doesn't work.
promise. I promise, dude. The moment you said like, "Oh, what's the turnaround time like?" I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, this guy's stupid busy. I'm not gonna do it." Somebody capture that face and put it on the freaking thumbnail. That's the theme. That Italian. All right, listen. I know
Shut
you had
up.
something to talk about, Maddie. I know you had something to talk about, but I don't care because it's an hour in.
Well, it's gonna be the next one because
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you how do you say when you anticipate something for the
a
next
tease,
a tease.
cliffhanger.
No, because I saw right after our last conversation on this podcast, we were talking about you posted something. We were talking about reading comics again and buying stuff, and immediately right after you posted something on Instagram with a list of books with a picture with a bunch of books, new books that you just bought it you were about to read. So I wanted to talk about that because I just ordered a few things and I wanted to talk about that. So next, if you guys agree with me, next episode we'll talk about stuff that we watched. New stuff that
we can talk about stuff.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I got a show I want to talk to you about, Matteo, that I think you'll like too.
I've been overly critical, and it's strange to me. And again, this is in line. We'll leave it for next time. But I've been overly critical about Marvel related stuff. Every time I dip my toe in that space, I'm like, geez, Louise, this is so mind-numbingly uninteresting. Again, that's my commentary. It's not made for me, so I don't buy it. Right.
Right.
But when I read World's Finest, it's written by, is it Mark Waid? I think it's written by Mark Waid. Right. And
Was that Rude? World's Finest? Who drew World's Finest?
It's Dan Mora.
Oh.
Oh, good.
Wait, is that a new one?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not talking about the
Yeah.
old World's Finest. the Steve
Holy
Rude one.
crap! You want to talk about like the storytelling? Then like, oh,
Yeah,
they
you
didn't sit
you
there.
Is
posted
that
about
a
that.
brand
You
new
posted
Marvel
about that.
series?
It's a new DC series, and again, that's the other
Oh,
one.
DC. Okay.
I'm not a DC kid, but I'm reading this, going like, holy crap, this is really, really well done.
Is that all original? Like the characters are new, or is
Batman
No,
and
it's like
Superman.
Batman and Superman, right? Like,
oh, Batman and Superman. Okay.
it's strange to think I'm sitting there reading a Batman and Superman book, and it feels more like an old school X-Men book
Mhm.
than it does an old school Batman and
All right,
Superman
you got me
book, which is,
intrigued.
Okay.
How many
like,
issues is that? Is that
so
ongoing?
far there's been I've gotten as far as 7.
7.
And I think there's more, right? But I stopped because I want to read all the other ones that I bought. Like I have a ton of them on my iPad. I want to get through them and just get back into reading comic panels to panels again.
I want to do the same.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it for next time, gentlemen.
All right, one quick question. One quick
Yep.
question, Matteo. What shirt are you wearing under this shirt?
Oh, I have. Do you have a Fratelli one?
No,
I have
but we should have coordinated that.
an Obey one.
That's
normal
nice. I am
brass.
sporting my Run the
that?
Jewels.
Oh shit! Nice.
This is the INKPULP podcast. This is the INKPULP podcast. Comics, hip hop, life.
Yo.